welcome to the Static Site Fan Club. You're here with Static Site fan Zach and Static Site fan Mike. And hopefully we'll have a few other Static Site Fan Club members joining us soon. We've got a very exciting lineup of first. Let's just bring up my tweet. First, we got tabs of the week. We're trying to come up with names of these for these segments. We should call it Zach's tabs for the week.
Put a little personal touch on it. Yeah, my leftover tabs of the week.
We got web component roundup, RSS reader rundown, and a secret on-stream project that will be revealed shortly. Hey, Chris. All right. We also need to up the production and have like segment videos that will be coming soon. Yeah, maybe we need a jingle for each one. But let's start with the tabs for the week.
Tabs for the week. Bam.
That's good. I'm gonna use that.
Oh no. Yeah. Let me find my sharing button. All right. This is just hot on the tails of our RSS feed reader work this week. This came in as an 11e project. Someone shared just some design treatment that they had for their sort of subscription page. And I thought it was worth calling out because I really like just it almost elevates these different feed readers as like social targets, like subscribe to my feed and these reader services. And it's not really any more than that. And this is from Asher Cabrera, and they are sort of big in the 11e community, done a bunch of 11e sites, but I really like this. And I sent him a message saying that this should be a web component too. So anybody can sort of reuse this widget on their site to have people subscribe to their feed. We need to get Mike's RSS reader icon here too.
Yeah, 11 feed. Yeah, because like I've found that with a lot of people's blogs, like finding the RSS feeds. Often I just go into the source code, or it's like a link hidden away somewhere. Like making it kind of celebrating it and making it awesome. I feel like that just makes people more aware of it and more likely to subscribe.
Yeah, 100%. And I think I think a lot of folks just rely on the auto discovery thing. So you sort of rely on people just typing your domain into their feed reader. And this kind of eliminates that friction because I use Feedbin. This would take me right to Feedbin and would auto-populate the subscription in there, which I think is, I really like that. It's the follow me on Twitter for RSS.
Yeah, it feels a lot nicer.
One of the big news stories for me was earlier in the week. And it was this post on Tom's Hardware that highlighted maybe the Dan Liu post that we had shared a few weeks ago. And it was sort of Dan Liu's like super extensive, giant study into web bloat just generally. And I think we did show this one on the stream. But one of the big takeaways for me, and I don't think I even realized this reading Dan's article, was that there's on this sort of TechnoSpark 8C low-spec phone, this quote that it can hit 40 FPS in a game, in this battle royale game, but it lagged to 1 frame per second on a social media site. And I thought that was an incredible just sort of pull quote from the article that I do not think got enough credit. That somehow the web is slower than a 3D game engine.
Does that speak to how unoptimized browsers are or how optimized PUBG is?
I think it goes both ways, right? Like the game probably is hyper optimized and is probably compiled and has all these sort of architectural advantages to it, but the other side of that coin is that websites are slow. And it's not necessarily the fault of the browser or the runtime environments that these websites are running in. It's that web performance is not as high a priority as it should be, from a tooling perspective, from a developer perspective. Yeah, there's all of these sort of different aspects of it that add up to that's crazy. That sort of really,
Yeah. It's a
yeah,
really good
hard
point
hitting.
because when you think about like PUBG or any like 3D, any game in general, if that was getting 5 FPS on that phone, no one would play it. And it would
Yeah.
be like they would have to really reduce the quality of the game until they got a decent frame rate. Because we don't really have the same with websites, right? Like the 1 FPS, it's like it's still usable and it may be a bit more annoying and I feel like just in general the testing on lower end devices just it's not thought about as much.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of pieces of that as well because I think the lower end devices is a big part of it. I think that the incentives when it comes to monetizing these things is maybe also a big part of it because
True.
if I don't know what the monetization model of battle royale PUBG is, but I would assume that they probably make money when people play the game.
Yeah. But you would
um,
think the same for social media. Like you need eyes if
yeah,
you're
that's very true.
Twitter or Facebook or anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't know.
Interesting.
That's yeah, that sort of really caught me off guard, and I thought it was, yeah, super interesting piece of it. I did also want to shout out this personal site that came across my stream this week. I thought was sort of interesting and incredible. It's a sort of the weirdest, one of the weirdest personal sites I've ever been on. Did you see this week, Mike?
No, no. This looks
No, it's
awesome though.
someone that's just like really into gamification decided to gamify their website. So like if you click a link, it gives you a point, and then you earn like coins, and the coins show up here in the bottom right. So you like it incentivizes all of these like interactions on the site, which
Oh my
I
god.
I don't think I like it in like a commercial sense, but
Of course.
it does feel fun for a personal site because it's just like I don't know, not there's nothing at stake here. It's just you can see the joke. It's obvious that it's a joke, and it's very
Mm,
well executed too.
it is.
Unlock a premium cursor. Like I'm gonna do it. Here we go. I don't know what this is, but oh yeah, look at that yellow
That's
cursor.
great.
That's amazing.
It's a
Um,
clever way of giving people the option to do that because normally, like, you're not going to add a button to change the cursor to a
yeah,
normal website, but this makes it really fun, and you want to add a like fun cursor.
yeah, and I mean, it's not just like interact with my site. It's go to my social uh,
Mm.
feeds and subscribe to my content there. And then at the bottom, they have like a gambling section where you can like pay a coin and see if you can earn more coins. It's just silly and crazy, and yeah, I really enjoy it. Ooh, I won some coins! Hooray!
Oh man,
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. I love it when people like put extra effort into their personal sites in that way.
yeah.
Ellie had this sort of, I don't know,
I saw this
very
one.
impactful blog post. This almost identity crisis that's happening in front end development right now. And you kind of remember this from CSS Tricks a few years ago. They wrote about the Great Divide. And yeah, I think Brad Frost has sort of said front of the front end web development should be its like own thing. And I feel like we always have this sort of tension between specialization and generalization that is in some respects healthy, but it does feel a little bit like and feel like the pendulum has swung to a certain degree in one direction right now in an unhealthy way. And yeah, I am curious to know if it's going to swing back or not. But yeah, it's a great blog post. I'd recommend going out and reading it. This was, I think, in JavaScript news, one of the biggest news items that came out in the last week. There is a new proposal for signals. So signals is kind of a way to, it's a sort of lower level primitive to track updates in a data model. And you can kind of see this in a bunch of different places. I think Solid.js is kind of known for being the biggest framework advocate for signals, but these are sort of permeating, this pattern is permeating to a bunch of different frameworks right now. And it's great to see that it might become a platform primitive as well. Like you can use it first party in JavaScript at some point. So yeah, huge news. And yeah, I think I've been kind of looking for a thing to replace because 11D has this notion of computed data. And I think signals would be a great extension to that. So I can delete a lot of the code that I wrote to sort of hand wire some of this stuff and have it be managed with a signals pattern instead. So yeah, look for more of that to come. But yeah, that's big news. I think the 2024 Web AIM million statistics report dropped. And Dave had some commentary on it, and this was the source where I first saw it. And Dave's takeaway was that the number of errors, the number of detectable errors, has decreased, which is, I think, great. If you go out to read the report, you can read the report. It's open for anyone to read. There are a few things to note here. It looks like the methodology for the report changed, so you should maybe take some of those year-over-year comparisons with a grain of salt. But I think it's always just sort of interesting to see the top million homepages and see how many detectable errors. Like this is low-level stuff, low-level fruit, right? Things that could be easily fixed if we wanted to fix them. How pervasive those errors still exist, accessibility issues. So yeah, it's always, I think, a wake-up call when that report comes out. I really like this post from Scott Vandehe. I don't know if I've said their name out loud before, but yeah, followed Scott online for a long time. And they go through how many sort of web standard and web standard adjacent file system APIs there are. So in a web browser, you do have access to sort of the file system. And yeah, you have there's a lot of different APIs, and they're sort of confusing how they overlap and when they don't overlap. And I think maybe the one that most people are familiar with is the form input, where you can upload a file, input type file. That's maybe the one that most people have interacted with. But yeah, there's a lot more to it. And you can read through those and see what the differences are here and learn more about those. I think it's, just to me, the thing that caught my eye is that I always think of this in terms of like the context of 11D, and could 11D run in the browser if we use these file system APIs?
Interesting.
And eventually would Node adopt these same file system APIs, or would different, because you see a lot of these, there's so many different JavaScript runtimes now, and Node has its like own FS package that does like file system access. And it would be nice for all of these things to be standardized, right? We've talked about this so many times before, especially when it comes to all of these different hosting providers having their own JavaScript runtimes. I think we went through that last week with the WinterCG stuff, and yeah, maybe showed some news of that last week. And it would be really nice if we could just all go through the web standard APIs, so we don't have to have node specific code and bun specific code and Dino specific code. But yeah, all of these runtimes are sort of trying to fill the gaps of these things without maybe investing in the standards as much as they could. But yeah,
It would be
I don't want to get too
like,
distracted.
yeah, the 11T in the browser is fascinating. Like I feel like from Cloud Cannon or like a content management's point of view, like we're building a lot of tech to give the impression of that, where you make a change and it just appears on the website. And like if you're building with Next, that's pretty easy to do because you have the full render pipeline client side. And for like Hugo and 11T and Jekyll and the more like staticky ones, we've built a lot of tech to give that benefit while being a purely static site. It's pretty interesting, like blurring that line.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that there would be an incredible amount of lift to get there because, I mean, even in 3.0, I've sort of been working more recently about using virtual templates. So templates that don't exist on the file system, and you can process those with 11, but they act as though they're like first party templates.
Interesting.
And so
What's an example of like what's a use case of that?
there's a couple of different use cases. I think testing is maybe the most obvious one, where you can write a test for 11 without having to create any files, and that makes the test faster and easier to use. But maybe the biggest sort of application use case would be creating content from plugins. So I could have in my RSS plugin, I could generate an output template inside the plugin. So you wouldn't have to create any files on the file system to have an RSS feed in your output.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I think there'll be a bunch of other things that I have not anticipated that could come out of this, but I don't think it'll be incredibly high used, but yeah, I think it'll be definitely useful. This post from Ahmad Shadid was incredible. It just came out 2 days ago. Interactive Guide to CSS Container Queries. And the real winner here, I think, is just the visual explainers that they have. Just an incredible high level of production quality inside these demos here. And they have an auto resizer, and you can toggle between, on this example, media and container queries. Just sort of blown away by the level of high quality demos here, which I think is great. And it also makes it easier to learn what container queries are and how they work when you can see them in action visually, and you can play with the resizer yourself. I think everyone's I don't know, I've built a resizer like this, but this one is a lot better than the one I built. I would like to see some of this stuff as web components, but I'll keep saying that over and over again until the heat death of the universe. Matt Marquis launched a new introductory JavaScript course on web.dev, so you can go out and, if you wanted a good way to start learning JavaScript from scratch, this seems like a great place to start. Matt is a very good writer. He's written a book on, I think, JavaScript for designers. I don't remember the name. I have it on my bookshelf, but so I'm sure this is a great free resource as well. And then I think last week we chatted quite a bit about light and dark mode and togglers, and you kind of had one in your RSS reader. And yeah, I think this light-dark helper is going to be maybe the best way forward to implement that, because I think even last week we talked about the struggle between having code nested inside of a media query, but also having a JavaScript toggle that paired with that. And how do you not repeat your code in two separate places? Because you'd need this code to also be applied to your manual JavaScript toggle that exists on your page. And I think one of the common recommendations that people have been asking for, I think for years, and I think Brasmus is maybe a big person, or oh, it's Bramus. I've been saying Brasmus in my head for years. It's Bramus has been saying that this should be in web browsers, right? This should be a first-party thing in your web browser UI that you can toggle on and off light mode. And I think it's probably just light and dark mode is not prevalent enough in code. It's not implemented enough in code that that would be a reliable thing. So then you'd have to do some like detection about whether or not a website supported light and dark mode before the browser enabled this button. And I'm sure there's a level of complexity here, but if we play this like animation here, you can see that it toggles back and forth between light and dark, and you just have your light color here and your dark color is the second parameter. And yeah, that's kind of all you need to do.
Is
which
this
is
a
great.
proposal or what is it?
Yeah, I think it's coming. Let me look at can I use. Yeah, it's already in Firefox, Chrome, coming in Safari. Oh, that's interesting. It's in Chrome, but not Edge. So yeah, it's coming.
Samsung Internet's holding out too.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not available everywhere yet, and you'll obviously have to do like fallbacks, I think, for when this isn't supported.
Yeah, that's real nice though. Like that gets rid of so much JavaScript and just like the code that would be almost exactly the same on everyone that wants light dark mode with a button.
Yeah, I don't know that it like when it comes to the manual toggle, it won't get rid of any JavaScript, but it'll definitely simplify your CSS. But
yeah,
I think this is great. It kind of leaves out the theming extensions that we talked about last week. So you have like light and dark, but we showed. Well, maybe we didn't show this last week, but there are some sites that go deeper into that, right? Where they have like a complete theme chooser and they have like 10 different themes you can choose. And
yeah, like some are fun and then some are like accessibility, like here's a colorblind mode or whatever.
Yeah. I think Maxbox is maybe the best example of that, where they have like the lobster chooser in their header and you can add the lobster theme or whatever. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays with light and dark as well. But I'm sure we can manage all the things together. Because it's almost like you'd need light and dark variants of every theme that you produce, which then becomes a combinatorics problem.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Do you want to go right into web components, or do you want to?
Yeah, we need
that's the tabs of the week. Wrap it up.
All right, now we need a jingle for what do we call it? Component rundown, web component rundown.
Web component roundup, rundown or roundup.
Oh, true.
Like a Western. Or up? Do you like a Western theme or?
Yeah. Are we starting at the top and going down, or starting at the bottom and going up?
Yeah, I think round. Wait, what did you say? Down? Something down?
Round.
It's not round down. What did you say?
What did I say?
I don't know. Rundown. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thanks, Bob. Yeah, rundown I think has some negative connotations.
Yeah.
So when something's run down, then it's not high quality. But yeah.
Hi, Sam Griffin. Good to have you here. Thanks, Bob.
Yeah. Web. web components round up.
Round
It's,
up. We're rounding them up.
or yeah,
They're like
it's
the lost sheep of the internet, and this is the segment where we round them
math.seal.
up.
Yeah, exactly. This one I think everyone saw this week. This has been shared everywhere, and with good reason. Callie comes from, I think, someone that works on the Nord Health design system. And they had a duet date picker, and you can see in the sources down here at the bottom. But this looks like an incredible just calendar picker web component. And I think there's been a lot of words spilt on blogs about how input type date has some accessibility issues. So just using like the native form controls isn't always the best accessibility story, which I think is just a tragedy. But we're neither here nor there. So yeah, I think this looks great. I think I was sort of looking at this morning, and this isn't right, is it? Because I mean, maybe no, this isn't right.
Third,
Today's
and
the
it's a Wednesday.
So I don't know if maybe there's just a bug with this day of the week selector here, but
Yeah, date off by 1, isn't it?
yeah.
Yeah, it didn't account for 0.
I'm gonna have to file that after this stream.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it
You want-
wasn't mentioned, but maybe we'll go to GitHub and we'll just look real quick.
Yeah,
No,
you'd think
doesn't
that
look
would
like
be
it.
the first thing.
Well, it just came out this week, so it's I'm sure it's early days for this, and yeah, we can get because it just seems like maybe a small bug.
Yeah.
I found this one in my benchmarks in my bookmarks from a while ago, and it looks like it's still being maintained. It's a headless custom element library, which that's like right in my wheelhouse. When I hear headless web components, I'm into it, because I think a lot of the web components, we've definitely talked about this, how the more design you add to a thing, the less reusability it has. I like things that are just super minimally designed and allow the developer to customize those to their site's theme as they want. And yeah, I think I've said this before, how a lot of my demos use just like the default sans serif font or the default serif font, and just have no decoration to them at all, because I really want to drive home that idea that this is just the mechanics of the thing. There's just the bones of the thing. And yeah, you sort of have to customize the visuals of it. Because I really do think that's how you can get the most like 5-year lifespan out of a component. And yeah, they have like a full suite of custom elements that they have here, which I think it's great. They have an animation one, and you can see it kind of matches some of the conventions that people might be familiar with Alpine. But I did really like this code convention of sort of escaping to script and not trying to dump everything into the markup. I think maybe we've seen that in some frameworks recently, where they try and inline JavaScript into like an attribute on an HTML element, and that just feels like too much for me.
Yeah, I got really into Alpine for a while, and it's like feels like magic for simple use cases, but then you want to do something with a bit of complexity, and it gets a bit messy.
Yeah, and I think just the ability to escape to use script when you want to is an incredibly powerful thing. And that's how they wired up this animation piece. So that's great. And I don't know if we've showed this one or not, but it was in my bookmarks. We had sort of talked about and built that sort of captioning piece of YouTube videos and how to create or use your video transcripts and sort of elevate those to first party content. And when we published that online and sort of talked about that, and I blogged about it on my personal site, someone sent me this demo. It's Captions Viewer, and it's sort of taking that to the next level. So this is, I think, maybe the Dune trailer, but the magic of the component here is that let me mute this, but it goes through the trailer and then we'll match up the captions below to yeah, the section in the video, which I think is great. And you can kind of see the same thing on like a YouTube live stream, right? When it does playback, it will like play back the comments at the same timestamps. So yeah, that's just another way to do that with your site and a web component. Jason Garber has this ARIA collapsible. Did we show this one? I don't remember now. But yeah, it's just another way to do a collapsible. I think there have also been a lot of words spilt about using details summary for too many things, and how that can sort of break down at some point. So I think I am I commit this crime quite a bit where I use detailed summary because I like the no JavaScript experience. I like the fallback of having access to a working collapsible if JavaScript hasn't loaded yet. But there are some accessibility drawbacks to that, and I don't think we have time to go through them today, but this is the alternative, right? You can implement a web component that will do something similar. And then maybe the last one I have is ClickSpark. Just a fun little, when you click, it makes a little animation. I like little ambient ones, are really fun. And so yeah, if you get enough coins on my website, then you'll unlock this custom animation when you click on things.
We all need to gamify our personal sites.
Yeah. This one's from Ryan Mulligan.
That header's kind of cool.
Yeah, I think if you go to Ryan's site, it's pretty amazing.
Wow.
They have like this like demo screenshots carousel here. And the hover states are amazing too. So just, yeah, Ryan's awesome. I worked with Ryan at my last job.
Very cool.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the end of the web components roundup. I don't have a jingle for that one yet. I think if I tried to make one, it would sound very similar to the last jingle.
Yeah, maybe we'll do one jingle a week. That seems like a good cadence.
We'll trial it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. I found out that I looked at my tweet for this stream, and I said we have a web component round up and an RS reader run down. I didn't even intend. That was unintentional, but yeah. So now we're getting down. Let's do it. Okay. So I went to town on the RSS reader in the last week, and I got really into it. And I have a brand new appreciation for Eleventy and PageFind. Just like really getting into a lot of functionality that I haven't used before, and it was like a real joy to use and push. So what we have is for those that haven't been following this project, I've been building an open source RSS reader in Eleventy that can be self-hosted. And the idea is a bunch of people use something like this, and we can all see what each other's reading. We can go in and download each other's OPMLs and and kind of create this mini social network around RSS. So what we have working now is this is paginated. These categories work, but they're not paginated. Um, we need the classic double pagination feature in 11T to get those working. But I think for now it works fine. We have search. And what's cool, I'll go into how this works. It's um, it doesn't use the default page find setup. It goes a little bit deeper, which was interesting figuring that out. It has the light dark mode, and then going into a post. Last week, this was just it was sanitized content, but it was what it was doing is taking the HTML content from the RSS feed and converting it into Markdown and then back into HTML, which I think it's user generated content essentially that can't like we can't trust. So it did a fairly good job of removing stuff that we don't want in there, but we want to make sure that this is very secure and locked down. So now it's an iframe and it's sandbox to only allow scripts. So JavaScript can run in there, but it can't escape out. And then allow top navigation by user activation, because I want to be able to like click on let's say like click on glitch blog and it actually goes to that rather than going into it in the iframe. Then like a bunch of extra like sanity checking on and on like all the other user generated data. Yeah, like read a lot about security blogs and web.dev to make sure it was good and I was doing the right thing. So I feel like very confident about that now. So we also have the OPML export working, and it
Nice.
keeps the category, and lists all my feeds. I can also just see a list of my feeds here, and oh, that's oh no, that worked. That worked. Yeah. So, see, this is the feed for Smashing Magazine. This is just Zach's posts. So I can just see an individual feed. Then I can go to the actual RSS feed. Or yeah, this was interesting. Your website link points to the feeds, which I can't remember which one I'm using. I think the self, that one's right, but I think that one should be your website, which it is. Okay, I need to look into that. Then I think that's and you can just put we'll go to the source code now. So this underscore feeds is basically the only thing you need to touch. So there's two options. You can either create this JSON file where you put the category and then list your RSS feeds, or you can drop in an OPMM file, and if it has the categories, it'll pick that up and do the right thing. If it doesn't have the categories, it will just put them in one called MISC. Yeah. So I've got to a point where it works, and I've been using it the past few days, and I've been really enjoying it actually. So
Amazing.
This is my one, reader.mikeneemigan.com. I haven't actually.
It's live.
Yeah, it is. So I haven't customized it yet. This is just the default setup, but I do want to add some fonts. Like what you were saying earlier about just being very like non-opinionated and not adding a bunch of craft on. Like this just uses the sans serif font and tries to it even a lot of the colors, let's pull up the CSS. A lot of the colors are just name colors. I just tried to keep it as simple as possible. There's no build on the JavaScript or CSS, they're just files. So these are all things that someone might want to add on top, but by not adding it into the default templates, it kind of opens up opportunities without having to undo everything.
Yeah, this is great.
Yeah, and then one thing I've kind of discovered is with using it is with Chris. Chris often does posts without titles, so I need to handle that case. I think he had a post where titles aren't a requirement from the RSS spec. So it needs to be
Oh,
handled. And I think I'll just take like the first sentence from the content and make it the title. But yeah, other than that, I've been really enjoying using it. So if anyone wants to try this out, it's currently in alpha. You can get it at Cloud Cannon 11T feed on GitHub. Yeah, so I'm just like using it, and I want to take feedback and keep iterating on it, and it'd be awesome to have other people using it and giving feedback.
yeah, that is amazing. Not only have you put up and published a production example of this, but you also open sourced the code.
Yeah.
Here we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, it's actually I mean, I've built a few open source templates and things, but this is like my first open source project, I would say. So it's been such a cool learning experience. Like yeah, it was only like 2 or 3 weeks ago I started it, but I feel like I've just learned so much building it. Um,
Yeah, that's awesome.
I wanted to talk about the search as well because that's like an interesting part of this where so usually with page find you would just run page find over your static site. It would index everything and just you don't really need to do much, and that's the magic of page find. The problem with this setup is um where is it, all that content, it's not even in the iframe in the source code. It's actually as a JSON string because I didn't want like to escape source doc, and I wanted to um, basically the way it, so you'll see it, the iframe like starts off that tool, and then it uses post message to communicate once the inner iframe is loaded to communicate the height, and then it'll make that iframe that height. So it's just like seamless. You can't tell. Um, so it needs to inject that JavaScript. And anyway, it's not a like typical setup that like that page find can just easily find that content and parse. So what we did instead is as it does a bunch of processing to like get the feeds, sanitize them, and now this is iterating it and making the posts. So as it's doing that, we get into the page find API and we create the index manually. So here's creating the index, and then we create this virtual HTML file. So we put
Mm.
the URL of it in, which matches the actual URL of the page, and then it builds a virtual HTML page with a header with the categories that it's in, and then the content. Yeah.
Hmm.
And then it uses that to index. So it's yeah, just a better format for it to read over. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Uh, yeah, and this is something that was added in PageFind 1.0, right? The
Yeah.
sort of
Like
indexing features.
yeah, I was like I just haven't got into the depths of doing something like this before. And I was just kind of amazed. Oh, and then you finally like just write it somewhere. I was just amazed at how easy that was to do a pretty interesting, funky setup.
Yeah, wow, that's all happening inside of the 11D collection API.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
not
I'm
sure
curious
if
how
that's
many times that runs. Hopefully
one
once.
like in for in post. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that's great.
it does like some smart things where if you like here I've got let's say I had your feed twice in two different categories, it would only pull it down once. It would know
Mm.
to like just keep track of the categories, but that's only one feed.
Yeah, that's great. I think the 11D fetch utility does that as well.
Ah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, it would like, and it is using 11T fetch too. Let's have a look at that.
so you might be able to just delete that code as long as it's caching. Oh,
Yeah.
Chris was going to say that. Jinx.
Yeah, this has been it's been really nice just for developing. Like I found this PMM file that's like 1,000 web designer blogs. I'm like, oh, I wonder if that works. And
Is that Seme Vetus?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like it took probably 5 or 10 minutes to build, but it worked. And like the end result, it was
Oh, you
cool.
processed all 1,000.
Yeah.
Oh,
Just to
wow.
like just to really put it through its paces and find edge cases. Yeah.
Yeah,
Anyway,
wow.
so
That's impressive.
that's 11 feeds. Check it out.
Amazing. Yeah, we're definitely going to have to share that on the socials.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been building it here, so I wanted to share it here first.
Yeah, that's amazing. You have to put up a blog post on your website, Mike,
Well, that's
to
actually
get your
next.
blog
Is
launched.
I want to I want to do like a similar like I know there's a lot of minimal templates, but I have like some ideas about what I want to do mine. So create the template first and then build my site on top of it. Yeah, so
Yeah, that's
that's like
great.
my next project for the next few weeks.
Yeah, amazing. Now we're wrapping up Mike's
Yeah.
self-hosted RSS feed. Da-na-na-na.
Yeah. It's cool. Like it's just been fun actually getting to use it. I'm really excited and it it does the things I want it to do without all the extra bloat and ads and upsells and all of that stuff. And it's just nice knowing if there's something I don't like, I can change it.
Just not add it. Yeah, just
Yeah.
and now becomes the hard part of saying no to things when it
Yeah,
comes to open source.
that's true.
Like, can you add this?
Well, my like the way I build it, it's like you can add it on your instance of it and then open source that.
Yeah, that's true. I need to think about an extensible plugin system for the thing. I mean, maybe you could just farm it out to 11D's plugin system. But yeah.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. All
Yeah,
right.
that's great.
We got
All
10
right,
minutes for the
10
last
minutes.
segment, secret project.
See how far we
We
can
have
get.
we have an ominous blue screen of light. of
Cloud Cannon Blue,
yeah.
Cloud Cannon Blue, Brandon Blue. Yeah, so I thought we've sort of talked about this project a few times in the last, I don't know, month or two. And we want to sort of walk through how to create your own static site generator from scratch. And I think I've thought about this project a lot because I maintain 11D, and 11D is a static site generator that's been around for years, 6 years, 7 years, six or 7 years. And so, yeah, I have a lot of, I guess, experience with maintaining a static site generator over a long term and sort of the tech debt that comes with that. And I thought it might be interesting to go through using what I know now. What would I do if I were starting over from scratch? And yeah, I think that there's a lot that goes into it, and there's a lot to think about. And I think 11D does a lot of things right, and I think it will probably match most of what 11D does today. But yeah, we'll probably also do some things differently, and that will unlock a few new things as well. So let's just, I guess, start. I have this alias that creates a new project for me, and we'll call it SSG. I don't know. What do you want to call it? Vanilla SSG?
Yeah, like a
Uh,
bit. It's like a skeleton. No, um,
hmm.
it's like a minimal SSG, right? How can we build a SSG like the essence of an SSG?
Yeah, we'll workshop a couple of
Not 11T, but
an
similar,
ideas.
Chris.
Not 11D SSG is the working title. Um, yeah, and let's see how far we can get. So one of the things that you need to do when you create a new project, or what I do when I create a new project, is I am most familiar with npm, so I use npm for everything. And yeah, that's how I publish code and reuse code. But I think just moving forward, it would be nice to have this be runtime agnostic. So it would be nice to have this work in Dino. It'd be nice to have this work in Bun. And yeah, I think that should be one of the core goals. So if maybe we'll make a README with some of our core goals. Not 11D, SSG core goals, runtime agnostic node, Dino, Bun, etc. Yeah, so we have our package JSON here. We have nothing. Let's create a sort of command line utility. And 11D, it's called CMD. But let's call this one CLI just to make it consistent. And this is sort of the piece that we use to run 11D. I'm actually going to bring up the 11D code base here. Close all. So we can maybe just copy some of this straight away. So this line in package JSON sort of gives you a command line utility that you can run. And it scopes that to the CLI. So let's use that in our package JSON. And we'll call it CLI.js. We'll not call it that. We'll call it SSG. Okay, so now when we run it like that, nothing happens, of course, because there's nothing here. We can do SSG. All right, so now we have a working version of that. How do we run this bin here? There is a section of, at the very top of this 11D sort of command line script, we tell it to invoke node here. Wonder if that will cause problems with our Dino stuff later, but if we do, let's see, npx, yeah, now we can run it. And I think that this bin actually is like a global command that you can run. I wonder if you can do that through npx as well. Yeah. So yeah, that maps to our CLI. And I think next we should wire it up to some file types. And one of the things that we use in 11D is a package called fastglob, which is great. It allows you to search the file system for different files that you want to process. And we can use that also, but I think maybe more interestingly, we should sort of create a wrapper around that. So this is another one of those things that we talked about even on this episode of something that's not completely standardized across all of these different JavaScript runtimes. So yeah, let's maybe make a wrapper around it. Let's create a source folder so we can store some of these things inside of here, and we'll make, I don't know, what should we call it? File system. We can call it glob utility. The other thing I want to do is come back to our package.json and make sure we're using type module here. And folks that are in the Eleventy community understand that we went through this giant refactor for Eleventy 3.0 that is not yet stable, but it's published and out there in Canary releases for people to use if they want to use the ECMAScript modules version of Eleventy. But yeah, let's start there, because that is the standards-based way to write JavaScript modules now, and we want to use that in as much of our stuff as we can. All right, so let's see. Let's make a glob function that takes a maybe a glob pattern and then operates on it. So if let's look at what globbing utility we can use. Let's go to npm. With 3 minutes left, we used fastglob in Eleventy. There's another good one called glob, which cheekily states here the most correct and second fastest glob implementation, which is just an incredible descriptor. But I think one of the more interesting things that's coming later is that Node is actually adding support for globbing built in. Here we go. Let's do, yeah. And there's a pull request that has been merged to add a fs.glob and fspromises.glob to Node, which I think is awesome. And that's kind of the magic that we want to prepare for here moving forward, is that we want to be able to use glob and fastglob and some of these other things, like a third-party package that will work in any runtime, but we also want to, at some point, escape back to this and use the platform, or not the platform native, but the sort of first-party version of it, because this is going to be the fastest version, I would imagine. And yeah, if we want to keep things as fast as possible and reduce as many third-party dependencies as we can, we want to stick to as much of the runtime provided things as we can too.
How would that work with Dino? Would it detect if it's Node, use the Node one, otherwise use this one for Dino?
Yeah, I don't know if there's actually a Dino glob. Let's look. It converts a glob string. Doesn't look like it. Yeah, there doesn't look like there's a file system search utility built in Dino. So, I mean, you want to prefer the things that are given to you by the runtimes, and then if those don't exist, then you would use a third-party dependency to do that. So I'm sure there are Dino compatible packages that allow you to search the file system in the same way. But yeah, we won't search for those yet. But we are running low on time. As you can see, my do not disturb turned off. Turn it back on. So yeah, I don't know how far we want to go with this, but I am keen to keep going next time. I think we can go through some more steps of this and set up a globber that will work across a bunch of different runtimes, and be prepared for a future that has first-party node support for glob. And we can probably process JavaScript files without any third-party dependencies to do so. So we can have a JavaScript first, like a server-side JavaScript first, or a build time JavaScript first SSG at the end of the next episode if we keep going on it.
God damn, that's exciting. Yeah, we got a good chunk of Eleventy's features implemented today. That's exciting.
Wait a minute.
Watch out, Eleventy.
We're coming for you.
It's really interesting breaking it down and seeing how the inner workings of it. Like, I mean, that's why we're building this on stream. But it's a fun project.
Yeah, and I think if we keep going, you'll start to see how some of these other libraries are architected as well, and some of the drawbacks that sort of went into the architecture of other frameworks too. Because I think when you start with even just the idea of starting with the ECMAScript modules first is allows you to get rid of a lot of baggage that exists in other frameworks to manage that sort of common JS, ESM, bridge. Yeah, and a lot of frameworks use bundlers to do that, and a bundler isn't necessary anymore to do that work. So yeah, it's exciting times.
It is very cool. All right, well, thanks everyone for joining today. 2 Chris's, I believe. Bob.
We need one more Bob.
Yeah, the Bobs have been outnumbered.
Bob's versus Chris's.
Yeah. Nice. All right. See you again next week. Thanks, team.
Later.